This is a production of KMmedia.pro. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So come on over into our world. I know you'll like it, because on today's show... Welcome to KKNW, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and it is noon on a Friday, and I'm very happy that you're here. I'm looking forward to having a great show for you today. We've got a wonderful young lady who is able to talk to you about a lot of things that in your life are perhaps not doing as well as you would like, and she can help you with that. Her name is Angie Monko, and we're going to be talking to her in just a moment. But first, I've got to talk to my friend, Nathan. How are you, buddy?
Good afternoon. Not just a Friday noon, a sunny Friday noon. It might be frying out there for a Friday today.
It is, because I spend most of my Friday in the dark in a room that doesn't have any light.
Oh, well, if you go out there, make sure you stay away from any like silver steaks or like a garlic or anything like that.
I don't do garlic.
It won't be good for you.
No, not at all. Not at all. So now we've been talking about this, but it bears repeating. Could you explain to everybody what we are doing this year that we have never done before?
Absolutely. We are now on video, live in living color on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And you can find those under the KKNW and Positive Talk Radio accounts for each respective platform.
Very good. So you can go to Positive Talk Radio, the YouTube channel, and you will find this right there. But there's also several on KKNW that you're doing as well, right?
Yes, not the only show we're doing. We have several shows on KKNW that have opted into video as well. And it's really a lot of fun to do that because you get to see us interact with each other. You can also type comments and even be a part of the show yourself. So if you're listening to our show and you want to say something, maybe a hello, or maybe you have something to say about the guest or how they're impacting you, just go ahead and leave us a comment in there. We love to see that, and we can put it on our screen and share it with the world if you have anything nice to share.
And if you want to talk to our guest today, because she is a coach and she works with executives and mostly women, because they've got special challenges that we are going to talk about during the course of the show. So if you want to call her and get some advice from her during the course of the show, you can do that. We'll put out the numbers when we get to that point, because we tain't there yet, because, well, and I tell you what, if you are streaming this live and you're seeing the video, you'll see the numbers right there, right on the screen. So that's pretty cool.
So go ahead and write those down, and we'll, of course, give them out right now, just for the heck of it, so people can be ready. But just wait and see when it's time for you to call in, and we open up those phone lines. But to just get yourself ready, our phone number is 425-373-5527, or toll free at 1-888-298-5569. And Kevin, if that triggers a caller, I'm not going to take the $20 for that, because we're not ready to take those calls yet.
Okay, well, very good. And it may trigger a caller, because our guest today, her name is Angie, and she is a life coach for intuitive women leaders. She guides them to clear barriers to their success and expand their potential so that they can feel relaxed, supported, and free to create the life that they love. In other words, she helps people be themselves. Angie, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. The interesting thing about Positive Talk Radio, especially on KKNW, if you look at the statistics, we are really pretty heavily a women's show because of the type of content that we present. And so one of the reasons I wanted to have you here is because this is right up your alley, right? Right. And
right.
you can help people. It's noon in Seattle, so there are people that have left their workplace and are getting lunch and are sitting in their car having lunch and listening to the show. So if there's somebody out there that has got some personal issues around work, around home life, around balance, how to put it together, Angie is a professional at doing all of that, right?
Yeah. Yep. Helping them understand, what's at a deeper level that's holding them back, like their unconscious beliefs and maybe some conscious beliefs.
And some of that happened to you. And so you are really well aware of that. Tell us your story.
Yeah. Oh boy. So I'm trying to think of where I want to start.
Start at the beginning. It's always the best, and we got time, so we
Well,
can. Yeah.
I was born. No, I was born in a little small town in Illinois, and called Staunton, and I grew up in a town called Warden, which is also a very small town, about 1,000 people. It was a rural community in Illinois, and one of my defining moments, I guess you could say, was when I was in 8th grade, and my dad, who we really had an estranged relationship because he was never around very much. And so, but when he was around, there was some abuse of my mom. And so it was a very tense relationship. But one of the imprints that he had on me was when I was in 8th grade. And he said to me, Angela, if you make straight A's, not one A minus, your 8th grade year, because it was the beginning of the year, he said, at the end of that year, I will give you $500. And now this was a long time ago. I'm 53, so this was a long time ago. And so I took him up on the challenge and decided that I'm going to make straight A's. I want $500. I mean, that I don't know what that would be equivalent to in today's.
Oh, that would be thousands.
Yeah, it would be a lot, but it was a big motivator for me. So I became very diligent with my grades and studying, and I did. I made straight A's, not one A minus that year. And he paid me the $500, and that began a path of being hyper driven to achieve. And then also feeling like, well, he'll love me and he'll approve of me if I am perfect, if I make straight A's. He wouldn't accept. I was already in need of his attention, but I wasn't getting that. And so you can see how for a kid, I made it mean a lot of things. And so, yeah.
Let's begin there, because I know a lot of women and they have a relationship with their father, but their relationship with their father may not be what they'd like it to be. And they're always spending their life trying to get his approval.
Right. It's so true. And I want to give you a positive ending, because there is a positive ending with my dad and I. But before that, this need to hyperachieve is a common trait in the women that I work with. And it's called a saboteur, actually, by this group, this company that I'm getting a certification in, called Positive Intelligence.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. And so one of the saboteurs is this hyperachiever. So, and we can come back to that if you want. We can go down the road of the father relationship, because it's really defining. It just, it helps us to form our identity and what we're worth and all of this, our self-esteem. And so I got on that path of trying to prove to him something, that I was worthy of his love. And I was craving that unconditional love, but I was not getting it. So I've seen a lot of women, that I'm reading this book right now about family constellations. Have you ever heard of that? Family constellations?
Not specifically. Inform me and inform our audience what it is.
Yeah, and I'm only halfway through the book, but a family constellation is just like our family unit. So there's you, and then your parents, your mom and your dad, and your siblings, and then your grandparents before them, and like everybody in your family. Okay, your family constellation is what they call it. And what's interesting about this book, since you brought up fathers, and we didn't have any idea what we were going to talk about here today, is that every person in our family needs to have a place. They need to to belong to our family. They need to belong. So I'm reading this book that was recommended by another coach. And I'm like, wow, this is really intriguing. Because for my dad, when I was young, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 11 years old, which I didn't even know about, by the way. I learned from a neighbor kid that they were divorced. I'm serious. That's like kind of lack of communication and dysfunction there was in our family. She's like, oh, I heard your parents got divorced. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that. So that was kind of embarrassing. But yeah, they got divorced when I was 11. And it was actually at the time, it was a good thing because, like I mentioned, there was domestic abuse, right? And towards my mom. And of course, when that happens, I was so young, you know, that as kids, that really had a huge impact on my life because I wanted to protect my mom. I wanted to protect her from him, my caregiver, my other caregiver. And so when I was 8 years old, I remember my brother, who was a year older than me, right around this time, we both started gaining weight. We actually started putting on weight. And it was in order to be strong enough to protect her from him, from my dad. And even this morning, I was doing some of my inner work stuff, and I was realizing that that part of a pattern that started for me was the need to take over responsibility for other people and to take over responsibility for their success or their safety, their health, their well-being, or whatever that is, that rescuing type of energy, you know, that doesn't put faith in people to figure it out, right? But no, like I have to be this. And so that over responsibility piece, I just want to mention 3 saboteurs, okay? Because they're part of the women that I work with. It's a big part of our lives. And I've already kind of touched on one, which is that hyperachiever. And we'll weave this back in, okay? But the second one I want to mention is the pleaser. Okay. So it was like taking over responsibility for everybody else. That's the pleaser saboteur. And then the third one that really kind of goes well with that is the controller. Because I felt so out of control in my home life when I was growing up, I felt like I needed to, well, let me try to control my environment. Let me make it neat and, you know, organized so that I will feel safer. So I tried to control my environment and I also tried to control food. Okay. So that's how these 3 different saboteurs, the hyperachiever, the controller, and the pleaser, are real common in the intuitive women leaders that I work with. So I just want, we'll come back to that in more detail if you want. So yeah, I'll pause here. Any questions so far, Kevin?
Well, I wanted to mention that I've been around a little while now, and because I've been around a little while, I've seen a lot of different families. And there was a time when I thought, well, you know, my family is kind of dysfunctional, but they're not really dysfunctional. And I thought other families were not dysfunctional. What I've come to understand is that every family dynamic, virtually without exception, has got issues that are within the family group that people don't necessarily want to bring out or talk about. It's like the oldest sibling versus the middle sibling versus the youngest sibling, and we all have different. In my family, it was when the 3 of us got together when we were adults, and it was like we grew up in 3 different families.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was the controller. She was the caretaker. She was the pleaser, all wrapped up into one little itty bitty body. Because what she had to do was my mother wasn't feeling well. My dad worked, a lot and didn't want the kids to be noisy or around. So my mother gave my sister at 10 years old the job of feeding the kids, because I was 5 years younger. My brother was 4 years younger than her. Feeding the kids, keeping them quiet so dad would not have to deal with the kids when he came home from work and he wanted to drink a couple of beers and have some peanuts and decompress from his day and stuff. So my sister took on that role, and that carried with her virtually her entire life.
Mm.
And my brother was the middle child, and so he was the rudderless one who ended up with drug addiction
Mm.
and stuff like that because he didn't feel part of anything. And I was the youngest one, who was of course the mistake, but I was also the athlete. And so I played baseball and football, and so I my connection with my dad was through athletics. And so
Mm.
it was very much a dysfunctional situation. But I'm finding, and I'd love your advice on this, Angie, is that our when you start delving into the dysfunctionality of a family, do
Mhm.
you find that most families are that way, and it plays itself
Yeah.
out with, and especially executive women who are strong women to begin with,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
plays out in ways with them?
Yes, without a doubt. I think that most, I don't know any family that doesn't have some dysfunction. Every family has it. As long as we're human and we can have different opinions about things and different reactions and perceptions of reality, how we experience life when something happens, everybody's different in how they perceive what happens to them. So it's not what happens to us that makes us dysfunctional. It's not the event, it's not what happens at all. It's how we perceive it. It's the narrative that we tell about it that carries on from the day of the event, no matter what the event is. And so, just like every family is dysfunctional, I believe every person has a degree of mental illness. And I know we hate that word, but when I say mental illness, that just means we're not thinking clearly. We're not seeing things clearly. We're confused or we're traumatized, and there's some distortion there. There's distortion in our thinking, and we all have that. Like, as long as we're human and we have beliefs, I think we all have that. It should not be a stigma at all. Dysfunction in the family should not be a stigma at all. I mean, we should all be able to talk about it freely and openly because it's just reality. It's just reality. It's just how it is. It's not a bad thing.
Well, it's based upon our youth and what people told us growing up,
Mhm.
what we end up believing that is true. Whether it's true or not is a whole different question, but we believe it to be true, and so therefore it affects our behavior in all kinds of ways, and it shows up in all kinds of ways, doesn't it?
Right, right, right. And I think, what sets me apart, what my message is just to be ourselves. And that sounds so cliche, Kevin, but I believe like the world is doing everything it can to prevent us from just being who we are because we're so cloaked in shame and guilt. There's so much shame around, well, I shouldn't be thinking that way, or I shouldn't be feeling this way, or I should have done that, in my past. I messed up, I made these mistakes. And we're so hard on ourselves. And that's where those saboteurs come in. We have with positive intelligence, there's 10 different saboteurs that Shirzad, who's the owner of the company, they've done research, extensive research to show it really comes down to 10 different saboteurs. And then we have our sage. He calls it the sage, that wise inner self, our higher self, or whatever you want to call it. And so it's, if we live in saboteur land, it's like we're keeping our hand on the hot stove. We're always, it's like, hey, when we experience something negative and fear based, it's like we put our hand on the hot stove, right? Well, in saboteurs, they'll have you keep your hand on the hot stove instead of saying, oh, well, maybe I don't like that. Let me look at this in a different light. And it's not mindfulness. It's not just mindfulness. I don't want you to think this is about, well, let me meditate my way out of these feelings. It's not that. It's more, let me know, what am I feeling? Like being in touch with our body. Have you heard of the word somatic?
Oh, sure.
So somatic experiencing, like soma means body. So it's just a fancy way to say, how can we just be in tune with our body, our feelings, and our thoughts as well. That's the mindfulness part of it, right? The mindfulness is when we have the thoughts. but the somatic is the feelings and the body. And when we can just start to notice ourselves, like pay attention to what's going on for us and not assign all this different meaning to, oh, well, I'm bad if I do that. Or, we go down these bunny trails of thinking that make us miserable.
Why is it that women, and more so women than men, feel like and especially you work with a lot of executives, a lot of people that are
Mhm.
really stepping out there and doing some stuff. Why is it that they believe that they have to do it all? They have to have a clean house. They have to be a
Right,
great
right.
executive. They've got to be a mom and dad, or a mom
Mhm.
to their kids. They've got to cook a great dinner. They've got to be a great wife. That's got to be exhausting.
It is. And in that book, the Family Constellation book that I was telling you about, it's got the words fate and destiny in there, like connected fate or something. But in there, the lady that wrote the book, she's French. She was talking about how with women that as mothers, we have such standards for ourselves, such high expectations. And it's not just we as mothers, but it's everybody else too. This was really interesting. She said the expectation and the bar that we set for mothers and from their children, from other people viewing the mother, there's so much pressure on the mom to be the one who holds everything together, the one that has all the nurturing and the caregiving and the caretaking, all of that. It falls on mom. And so when things go wrong, it's really easy to blame the mom. And so children get estranged from their mothers. And whereas I should have brought the book in here, but it was funny. She said, and by the way, I do work with men too. I do work with men, but I have a group for women, and I actually now have a healing circle for all men and women. I just began that. But she was saying how for a father, back to our father conversation, she said that the criteria for being a good father is so low, like it's like they're lying on the floor. In essence, that if a dad changes someone's diaper, he's the hero of the year. Okay, I mean that was her appraisal of it. It's just that the standards are so different for the mother versus the father, and that's part of the pressure that we have, thinking that, well, we got to do this right, and we're always trying to please, and that's that pleaser saboteur, and we get the scraps emotionally and mentally and physically. Like, we get the scraps. Everyone else comes first, and if we don't put everybody first, then there's something wrong with us. It's a societal assignment.
It really is. But I'm glad that you work with men as well, because
Yes.
I have a message for men,
Mm-hmm.
which is wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Please wake up. You can't expect your wife, who is, let's talk about a reality a little bit here. And that is that you cannot anymore. When my dad was working, he could support the household, and my mom didn't have to work. Those days are gone. Now with the housing in Seattle, it's expensive, and
Mm-hmm.
both parents have to work, and women, I think, should work if they choose to, and they should have the same rights as everybody else if they work to, but they can't do it all. You
Right.
can't you can't be an executive and work 45, 50, 55 hours a week and then come home and then be expected to do all the things that women do who are not working. So there has to be, men have got to wake up. The time has come for them to say, okay, I'll do the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll learn how to cook. I'll pick up the kids I'll take them to soccer. You have a glass of wine, relax, and sit down. And you've had a hard day too. It needs to be much more of a communal effort to get it done together, rather than I bring in the bacon and you should clean the house. And it doesn't work like that anymore. Do you agree
Right.
with?
Oh yeah, I do. And I am not for men or for women or either against either. Just so you know, I'm more of an integrated approach, and that we all deserve respect. We all deserve respect. And when you say for the men to wake up, absolutely. And the women need to wake up too, though, right? It's not because, okay, let's just say there's an abusive relationship between two people. It could be physical abuse, emotional, mental, whatever. But so there's that abuse going on between the two. That was co-created. That was co-created because the person, it doesn't matter who's abusing either. It doesn't really matter. But let's just say that the woman feels like a doormat. Okay. Like maybe at work, she's very successful. She's confident. She can get it done at work. But when she comes home, she's got an over demanding husband. I'm just making this up. Okay. And he pretty much tries to run the show at home and tell her, okay, here's how we're spending our money and blah, 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 blah. And she just feels like she can't stand up to him at home. And so whose fault is this? Well, we don't even need to blame or point fingers. Like that's not even important. But let's look at, well, how can we change it? What's the dynamic or the pattern that's creating this relationship problem? Right? There's no intimacy here, because if someone's being abusive, well, there's no respect for the person that they're abusing. They have no respect for that person. They see them as maybe an object or, not to be taken seriously. If someone's beating someone up emotionally or mentally or physically, like they've lost respect for that person. Would you agree? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So
And the interesting thing about that is that there are people, and both men and women, that will absorb the abuse for years because they either think that that's their lot in life, or they don't have enough self-esteem to be able to say, "No, wait a minute, Buster, you hold on for a second. We're not going to deal with that." And so it becomes a real issue for within a marriage, within friendship. And we all have to understand that we need to get away from that, and part of it's a power thing. If she is an executive, as an example, and you work with a lot of executives, she's an executive, she makes more than him.
Mm-hmm.
He has a job that doesn't pay as well, but he doesn't have the desire to go out and get a better job. But then he holds it against her that she's making more than him.
Mm-hmm.
It's insidious how sometimes that works. That people are that way. By the way, I want to get this out. If you want to go to find out more about what Angie does, go to harmonyharbor.com and you can look all about her stuff. She's got a free ebook. She's got stories. She's got events that she's doing. And we're going to get all of that into all of that in the second half of the show. But first, we need to take a quick commercial break so that we can do what we need to do. And then we will be back with Angie in just a couple of moments. So please hang with us. The second half is going to be pretty good, I think. We'll be right back. Hey there. I'm excited that you're listening right now. And if you like what we're doing here, you're going to love positivetalkradio.net. On positivetalkradio.net, each show, which is recorded live, is packed with positive information, with real people discussing real issues and positive solutions that can work for everyone. I hope that you'll join us on positivetalkradio.net and listen to all 340 plus shows. I think it's worth your time. But then, that's just me. That's positivetalkradio.net, your home for great progressive positive podcasts.
When you want to say more than words communicate, you can with flowers. Your custom boutique floral studio in Bothell, Washington is anaturaldesign.com, connecting you to nature through the language of flowers. Where your people are is where our flowers are beautiful. Your success is our goal. anaturaldesign.com, at your fingertips today.
Hey, my friend. I'd really like to thank you for listening to the show today. As you may know, I started Positive Talk Radio way back in 2003. We were one of the first shows on KKNW. For 11 months, I was fortunate to be part of many lives, making a positive difference with great interviews and discussions, creating new thoughts and ideas. Sadly, for financial reasons, I had to terminate the show. Well, it took 18 years, but we're back better than ever. And not only on KKNW Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but also podcasting with several inspiring channels with the same driving passion as the original. Please visit kmmedia.pro for complete information about all of these shows. In addition, if you feel called to keep positive programming on the air, you can join us by sponsoring the show and aligning yourself with our mission, which is nothing short of saving the planet and each other. Again, that's kmmedia.pro. I'll see you there. And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. You're listening to KKNW 1150 AM. It's a Friday. Angie, I don't know what day it is, but it's a Friday, and it's at noon, and I want to save everybody here. Nathan, are you still there, my friend?
Absolutely.
Got a question for you, sir.
Sure. What's up?
Do you know what's happening Tuesday?
Tuesday. It'll be the day after my. I know what you're on to.
So I'm about to save you here, because if you go to A Natural Design, they've opened up their website for the entire weekend, so you can order something for Tuesday. So what is happening on Tuesday?
It is Valentine's Day.
Oh, tell me, should you have, can you have a Valentine?
Everybody can have one.
I
believe.
That's true. And you're not going to tell me whether you've got one or not. None of my business. I get it. So we'll just leave it right there, shall we? But just so everybody knows, Valentine's Day is Tuesday, and you can do a lot of good for yourself if you plan ahead and get something wonderful for your significant other.
And a great place to do that is always with flowers and going to naturaldesign.com and getting something there. I mean, we just heard about it in our commercial break, so go pick something up for your special someone.
Oh, and by the way, she is, they do incredible work. It really is. It's very pretty, and she does some great stuff. So I would encourage you to go do that, and she'll get it delivered on time. She's really good at that. So thank you for that, Nathan. And by the way, we're talking with Angie Monko, and she is a life coach, and she works with a lot of executive women to try and help them understand the life balance that we all need in order to make our lives work to the best that we can. And sometimes you have blind spots. And it takes somebody to get into you and get to understand who you are, so that you can talk about your blind spots and correct them. With that, am I?
Yeah. And I would describe intuitive women leaders as my niche and who I work with. So it could be executives, but it could be business owners and entrepreneurs who influence others. You know, they influence other people. They're helping other people, and so yeah.
It's an important work that you do, and tell us how it works when you get together with somebody and they give you a call and they say, I'd like to work with you. What does that look like?
Well, I give them an intake form. So I ask them some questions to figure out what's going on with them. And I work holistically. So I ask questions on, have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Amazingly enough, yes, I do. I subscribe to that philosophy.
So there's this hierarchy of needs, and like a pyramid. At the bottom, we have physical needs, and then from there we have the emotional, and then at the top we have mental and spiritual. And so I ask questions in relation to all those areas to see where they're at, because if say physically they're having health issues, we don't really want to skip the health issues if they're not 80% solid and go working on emotional, like relationship and career issues, because we need to get their health in order first, you know? And then that's the foundation. And then if that's 80% solid, then it's okay. We move up, we'll focus now on the relationships and the career, anything emotional related. And then once that feels like it's in place, then we go more into like the spiritual. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. To give you an example, if you have a chronic disease of some sort, you're probably not going to be thinking or worrying. Like if you can't feed yourself, if there's some sort of physical problem going on, you're in survival mode at that moment, and it's not going to be easy for you to think about career aspirations or your purpose. Well, it may bring you to purpose, but you want to put the fire out first before you can go up in those higher realms. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. But the problem that a lot of us have is we are so immersed in the physical issues and the physical needs that we have that we never get past that.
Right.
How do you encourage people to understand it and then to work with it to get past it?
Well, everything kind of boils down to what people want. What do they desire? And they're very inundated. We are inundated with keeping things the way they are. And so I'll give you sort of a visual. If you think about an iceberg, and the part that sticks out of the water is the conscious mind. It's the analytical mind, the ego. Okay. And then the part underneath the water is our subconscious. It's the body, it's the feelings and the emotions. So people, they want to stay above the water, right? They want to stay up in the mind, and they want to be analytical and even think their feelings. Like there's a lot of people who are really aware, but they're thinking about their feelings. They're not really allowing themselves to feel their feelings. And so if they don't allow themselves to get anywhere near their heart, the vulnerability, then basically they're saying, I don't want to change. Because in order to change anything in our life, any sort of habit or addiction, or move towards habit and addiction towards our dreams and our real aspirations, like being who we know we're meant to be. Like we know that we're meant to be a leader, that we're meant to influence and inspire people through our own role modeling. On some level, we know this, but yet the ego will convince us. It's a combination. It's sort of a double whammy. The ego on one hand will say, well, no, we're not going to the feelings. It's like the guard dog. Think of like a dog that's guarding the gateway to the feelings, the subconscious. It doesn't want you to go there. The ego mind will say, no. We're going to analyze this to death. We're going to rationalize it. Rationalize could be rational lies, lies. We're going to rationalize it to the cows come home, so that you are confused and you're distracted and you're not going to get to those vulnerable feelings in your heart. Okay, so you got that ego mind that's preventing you from getting there. But then you also have, and I said a double whammy, you have the subconscious mind, which is where your belief systems lie, where your emotions and your feelings lie. And we could have beliefs that tell us that we're not worthy. And these could be subconscious beliefs, probably are subconscious beliefs, because most people, if I say this is a self-worth issue, the reason you're not making progress in your business, or making the money you want, or having the relationships that you want, or having your health that you want, fill in the blank, is because on some level you don't feel worthy of that. You don't feel like you deserve it.
So how do you get through that if it's buried deep in your subconscious? How do you bring it to the surface and then let it go?
Well, here's the first step. Someone's got to be ready to make a change. They have to have been through enough. Can I say shit on the show?
No.
No. Oh, whoops. Okay.
You can say crap. You can say so just for fun. Let me tell you what's happening at this moment. Nathan is, they've got something called a 7-second delay.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the 7 words that you can't say on television or radio,
Okay.
according to George Carlin. And so he was running over to the button with fear in his eyes, hitting the button so that particular word will be cut out of the script.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So, but
So-
I just said, just by way of, I just think it's funny that anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So when somebody has been through enough crap in their life, enough pain and sorrow and suffering in their life, if they're not too stubborn, then they may decide enough is enough. Like, I want to do something different. I'm ready to make a change. But it often takes us being knocked over the head with this type of universal lesson, like boom, boom, boom. Like, I'm going to get your attention. And if I didn't get you to wake up then, I'm going to do something even more drastic to get your attention, meaning the universe, life. And so, the way stories unfold, that just seems to be the case. So, number one, we got to be ready to change. We have to be ready.
I gotta ask you, because when you are in a family situation and you are talking with the female executive, and she's the mom, and she is ready for change, she wants change. Do you have to include the family and solicit their approval to get that
No.
change to happen, or does she just do it?
So, it depends on the situation, but here's the thing. The biggest thing is if she's ready to change, or he, whomever is ready to make a change, like, that's the hardest part, because I can't fabricate that. I can't muster up willingness. If I could, I'd be a gazillionaire, And so if once she makes that decision, I have techniques and tools and energy, you could call it energy medicine, energy healing, that can absolutely, without a doubt, transform her belief systems that tell her she's not enough. And we're made of energy. And when we have trauma, it's not localized to the brain. It actually affects every single cell of our body. It's called cellular memory. Cellular memory. There's been lots of science on this. It's not isolated to just the brain. And so when we experience a trauma or something, grief or something difficult, like, it gets stored through images in our body, through images and it becomes destructive cellular memories for us. And so the good news is that there's a way to start to override and replace those destructive cellular memories or images with positive ones. Like, there's a way to do that. And it's actually been proven. There's been heart rate variability testing on this stuff. That's just the gold standard of testing to show what our autonomic nervous system is doing. And it's not affected by placebo. Like, less than 1% of heart rate variability testing is affected by the placebo effect, which means it's all up in our head. And so,
Right.
So this test, that's important, just because this stuff can be shown. This is not woo-woo. Some people might say, oh, well, that's woo-woo, to do energy work. But it's actually advanced healing. And it's the only healing that deals with a true solution and the origin of our trauma or whatever's happened to us, and not putting a Band-Aid on a cause or a symptom. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's really, I'm to a point in my life, and I've been doing this for a while. I get really irritated with people who say, oh, that's woo woo, because energy, Tesla proved that energy never dies. Right. Einstein proved that energy never dies. It just continues.
Right.
And that we are energetic beings in a physical body.
Correct.
And that is not up to debate anymore.
Right.
When people say, oh, no, energy stuff is woo-woo, or Reiki is woo-woo, wake up. It's not that. That's not the way it is anymore. They've proven that that's not the way it is.
Yes. And I think that people are waking up. I really do.
I do too.
You sense the shift of, oh my gosh, like, this is the year for transformation. That's what I've really been hearing. And for a lot of us healers or energy workers or empaths, people who are in tune with the energies, this is our time. So if you're sensitive like that, and and you want to do more, and you know you need to help more, you need to influence more, ladies and gentlemen, we have to start with healing our own heart. We have to heal the issues of our own heart. That's key, because it's the starting point. And if we don't heal the issues of our heart, we'll be dumbfounded by, well, why is that happening to me? Why do I do A, B, C? I do everything perfectly, and I'm still not getting the results I want. I'm still not successful in my business. People still abandon me and reject me, and I feel scared to make those phone calls. Or why on earth do I keep giving into my spouse, and I don't know how to stand up to them? And I know we have a lousy relationship, but I just don't have the courage. Or why do I let my kids walk all over me? Why do I have these chronic health issues? So they'll be plagued with this stuff, all these symptoms, until they heal the issues of the heart.
And isn't it true that a lot of people are beaten down every day so much that they're just tired and they kind of give up?
Yeah, there's this jadedness, there's this jadedness that's going on. And I think my biggest message, Kevin, is that you don't have to live with that jadedness. You don't. Don't buy into your saboteurs that are telling you that, oh, it's just going to be this way for the rest of my life. This is just how it is. The world is so messed up right now that this is just how it is. I need to accept it. And so my message is hope. That is just not true. It is not true. I don't care what has happened in the last few years or whatever. There is hope, because there is a way that we can actually heal the issues of our heart. It's not that hard, actually. The healing codes in this healing circle that I do once a month, I give free healing codes for people. And these healing codes will absolutely replace those destructive cellular memories with positive, empowering ones. So my message is hope. Don't give up. Don't believe the negative naysayer voices in your head, the saboteurs. That's their job, to keep your hand on the hot stove. But it doesn't have to be that way. It really, really doesn't.
Let's talk about the circle that you do once a month. If somebody wants to join that, can they do it from anywhere?
Yes, it's over Zoom. So they can just go to my website, harmonyharbor.com, and there's an events tab at the top, and they'll see it there.
I see it. That's right there. It says events and everything.
Mm-hmm. It's the first Tuesday of the month.
And what time? Now, where are you?
I am in St. Louis, Missouri. So it's 6 p.m. Central. So for you, Kevin, I think it'd be 4.
Correct.
4 p.m. Right. And the thing is, I want to stress this, they don't have to be there live. They can register for it. They will get a recording, and they will get what's called a healing code to go. So I do a healing code on the call, which goes to those destructive cellular memories. And then I give them instructions, everything is laid out for them. And they will get a healing code for the next 2 to 4 weeks until the next healing circle.
I really like the concept of what you're doing there, because one of the things that we lack because of COVID, but even more than just COVID, it was the cell phones. It's the fact that we tend to look down rather than look up. We don't talk on the phone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We do text, and text can never replace somebody's actual voice.
Right.
And stuff. And so we don't communicate. So building a community, a sense of community where like-minded people can get together to talk about things that are of common interest to everyone and a common problem for everyone is really a great idea. So I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really inspired by my higher power, and just to, get out of my own way and just give people, and trust that you will be taken care of, And so when they come to this circle, they'll have a few moments. It's only an hour. It's an hour long. I mean, we went over a little this last time, but for the most part, I try to really get us in and out, and they can talk about what's really going on for them. we got to share the space with others. So, 2-3 minutes of, hey, this is what I'm hurt. This is how I'm hurting right now. And then, I do what's called a customized healing code for the group that shows up, the group that's on there at that time. And we do it together. And it's just a safe space to be real,
Which is really cool. By the way, you said my favorite word in the entire English language. You know what it is?
Mm-mm.
Trust.
Mm.
You have to learn to trust your intuition. You have to learn to trust yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and not to listen to the words that may sound suspiciously like your father or your mother,
Right.
or
Right.
or the bully down the street when you were a kid, and they called you fat and ugly and stupid. They
Mm-hmm.
were wrong. They were wrong, and they were wrong. So you trust that your higher power is going to take care of you, and will and listen for it, and open your heart, and it will show up. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. And speaking of, you mentioned father, like to go back to that father story that I was telling you about, how in the constellation book, that it's important that if we have written someone off or canceled them, like in our family, like you mentioned a brother, drugs and stuff like that. Like,
Oh yeah.
well, because my dad had anger issues, people in our family, I know they'd make fun of him, and disrespect him because it's like, yeah, we know Al has, the rage, and he's also religious, so they'd make fun of his religiosity, or just being over the top with that, and so because of what happened when I was growing up with him, he was not nice to my mom. Let's just say he wasn't, right? And the thing is, all these years, I've tried to make some connection with him, but I've always had my heart guarded. Like I don't trust this dude. Like, why would I trust him? And I've written him, I've tried to create connection, but he was blaming me, the kid. Like, it makes no sense. But a year ago, he got COVID and he was in the hospital, and I came to visit him and I helped him. Okay. And I stayed with him a few days after he got out of the hospital, and I really just tried to connect with him at a heart level. And what it did was it healed our relationship. And then, because I'm an influencer within my family, is kind of unconsciously, but because I brought my dad back into my own heart, and I'm like, how come I haven't been praying for him every day like I do my mom and I do all these other people? So I started bringing him energetically back into my heart, and praying for him and doing an energy for him every day. And so then what happened was my mom started bringing him back into her heart. Now they're divorced, and then my brother and his wife and their 2 kids. So now my dad and my mom and all of us, we get together for family occasions. And like tomorrow, it's my brother's birthday party. So we're all getting together. And Kevin, it's just a wonderful thing to know that if we have a black sheep in our family, our father or whomever, we need to bring them back into the fold and let them know, this is the family constellation thing, that they belong. They actually belong, and they have a rightful place in our family, no matter how messed up they are.
Exactly. Well, and there is a reason why they are messed up, because they've got stuff that has happened to them as well.
Right.
And so, it's really important, if you can, to accept folks back into your life, if you can. By the way, we have been talking to Angie Monko, and we are going to run out of time, my dear. And it's great having you here. Your website again is harmonyharbor.com. I really encourage you to go to the event on when's the next one?
It's March 7th. Can I just say one more thing about one more event that's
Yep.
free? It's free. It's
Quick.
March 1st, and it's called Three Secrets to Expand Your Potential, Clearing Barriers to Your Success as a Rising Woman Leader. It's also out on my website under events.
Very cool. And that is going to be on March 1st?
March 1st.
Okay, put that in your calendar, ladies and gentlemen. Angie, it's been great having you here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And you're going to be on Positive Talk Radio, the podcast next week, I believe.
Yeah.
So that will be great fun. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Remember, positivetalkradio.net. I lied. I don't have 340 shows up. I have 420 shows up.
Ooh.
So there's lots of great content, lots of great things. Go to positivetalkradio.net. I want to thank everybody for being with us today. We'll be back Monday at 3 o'clock, Monday at 3, Wednesday at 4, Friday at noon. That's Positive Talk Radio. Thank you, Nathan, and be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time.